if you want me to go over it, I'm more than happy to go over the report. But if not, then if anyone wants to come back and have any questions or anything on it that I can answer, then please let me know.
Brilliant. I think there was a few questions. I know that there was a few points that I'd noticed myself. So first of all, thank you very much for the report. It was very interesting, and it was lovely and reassuring to see that some of the headline figures around the dwelling fires were obviously lovely and low at 0.
Yeah.
I was reading with interest a bit about the automated fire alarms and how, as a matter of course, you don't necessarily attend these. I was wondering if you'd perhaps be able to explain slightly about what happens in situations where there's nobody available to confirm that a fire is present, say late at night. What would happen if there was an automated fire alarm overnight, for instance?
So the UFAS policy that's now come out, so just at the start of this quarter, which was the 1st of July, so it's changed for ourselves, has now changed the way that we respond to these alarms because there was so many of them, not necessarily in the Black Isle area, but across Scotland as a whole. So what will happen for an automated fire alarm now is it's in any place that has a sleeping risk, we will still automatically attend that premise the same as before, the same appliances that were there before, due to that extra risk of that sleeping risk. If there's no sleeping risk within any premise now, then it is our control room will challenge the call, and they'll ask questions about what's going on, where it's come from. So much so that it's then put back on the responsible person, so the premise responsible person for that particular area or building to carry out checks beforehand is to see what's the reason for this activation. But concerns about if that's at the middle of the night, if at any point anyone was to give this a backup call and say, no, this is a confirmed fire, there is signs of fire, there is signs of smoke, anything like that, again, it will be a normal attendance. It's purely to stop attending, both during the day and at night time, to stop attending numerous false alarms or false alarms calls that we've been getting, which obviously frees up a lot more time for the crews to be able to carry out other duties that would be more beneficial than attending these things, and obviously stops that risk of the additional road risk and of you know what I mean, attending things that aren't required, basically, because they are seeing similar sort of false alarms going on. So that's the start of the pilot, and it will be continued to look at and roll out, although I believe it has been a very big success, and there is large numbers in the area that we're mentioning. Certainly there was 4 incidents that we attended in the quarter that we're looking at, whereas the previous quarter there was 10. So it's down slightly, but if you can imagine that across Scotland as a whole, let's say, it does make a big difference to the crews and what the other duties that they can do.
Thank you. And my second question was around the recruitment of firefighters in Fortrose, because I noticed that you had roughly a 50% availability rate in Fortrose.
Yep.
And obviously with it being the main one on the Black Isle, the main station, just wondering how things are going with recruitment and if you've had a few more volunteers come forward.
Yeah, so recruitment has I think I've spoken to most of you actually regarding this. It's probably during this quarter since I've come in, it's been it was needed. We were struggling for people just due to people leaving the service and maybe people taking temporary positions away from that particular area. So it was a big thing, which reflects on the availability, which, as you can see, it's 50%. So it's obviously strive to get better. So we spent a lot of time generating interest, putting out, getting that information out. Thanks to yourselves as well for helping at doing that. And we have had a good bit of interest, and I've spoken to several people, along with the guys who manage the station there, and we are in the process of getting more people. We actually have had one new recruit starting just there about a month ago. So that's one new person that's on the books there as such. And then there was another one in the previous few months to that, and we've also got another few in the process. This obviously takes a little bit of time just to go through the appropriate channels to make sure it's that it suits both parties, to make sure they're the right person for the job, and then the initial checks to make sure that they can meet the standards for fitness and other selection tests that have got to be carried out. But these are now underway. There is people in the process, so it is looking a lot better, but you can imagine it'll take a little bit of time to reflect on that, because there is a process to go through with getting through the initial process to get them into the job, but then also the training that's involved afterwards to make sure that they're safe and available and ready to go. But it's in a good place. I'm certainly happy.
Thank you. And I think the last thing I was wanting to say was that I know that the work of the firefighters in Fortress and Cromarty is really much appreciated in the community, and especially helping with community events has been really noticeable. And I know that my children loved getting wet on the water slide at Fortress Academy. So, but Marvin May, you were wanting to come in on this topic, weren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I really wanted to get the chance to say thank you for the incredible work that you did, particularly in Cromarty at Halloween. It was just fantastic. I have no idea how much time was put into that, but it was absolutely phenomenal. And to see so many people just smiling and laughing, having a great time, and being so involved and invested with the fire brigade was just fantastic. It was really, really good. So I just wanted to pass on a huge thanks for that, because it really was outstanding.
Thank you. I will make sure and pass that on to the crew. I certainly know that they did put in a lot of time and concern and effort to try and make it, and to generate that interest, and that talking point to get them talking about fire service, which allows them to move on to different things if fire safety matters. So that's good.
It was really brilliant. I wanted to join the fire brigade when I was there, and I was seeing it. It was just phenomenal. It really was. So hats off to you for that.
Thank you.
Marvin May, did you have any other questions, or was that your main topic, that one?
I did, if that was okay. I just wanted to ask a question around the deliberate fires. I was just quite curious as to know whether that was from people potentially camping, or whether that was from potential house fires. Do you know roughly where those deliberate fires were set?
Yes. I had a look at it, and you're right. One of them was a camping incident. It was a camping fire that had been left. I don't know the exact details of it, but I've looked into it, and it was a camping fire that had been left unattended, which obviously is frustrating, but especially the summer, certainly the spring that we've had, and the amount of work and effort that's had to have gone in with crews, namely at Cannock sort of thing, which obviously the crew from Fortrose and Cromarty were involved in, and then also Daviate. So these things are frustrating for us. But yeah, that was certainly one of them, and the other one, it wasn't anything like that. It was to do with the garden rubbish somewhere. So, but again, yes, where we can and where we get involved with this, we obviously try and spread the word and get that out there to try and educate people not to do that, and make them aware of the camping side, and get involved with others to pass that message, as I'm sure you have seen, and then the other ones that happen, we'll always try and engage with anyone that we can there, public and addresses and things, to try and offer them fire safety visits and things to sort of reassure them if there has something happened near their house or anything. So that has happened, and on both these occasions.
That's great. Thank you very much for that. And Lindsay's already asked my question about Fortrose, so I'll leave that one. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Sarah, I believe you've got questions as well.
I have. Firstly, obviously, your service has had a hell of a summer. The headlines, the wildfires. So, I mean, absolutely heroic effort. So, obviously, pass on our thanks for all of that really good work. I mean, incredible work. I mean, these are kind of unprecedented, wasn't it? Quite terrifying.
It was. They went on for quite a sustained sort of period of time. It was a lot of dry weather at the time, and as people were wishing for rain, which now looking at it,
it's so easy to forget, isn't it? We have very short memories about these.
Yes.
Suddenly, we're now worried about floods and another extreme weather in other ways. A couple of points. Obviously, I'm lead counsel for Cromarty, but my first question is the road traffic collisions, because it's kind of highlighted. It's kind of well above average that you've dealt with. Where are these? Is there any? Because we are as councillors concerned with particular roads in our communities that there's a lot of dangerous driving. So it would be I'd be quite interested to know where these happen, or whether it is just people just not looking when they're coming out of their driveway, or is it because of speed, etc. And my second question is about Cromarty, because there was a fire. I mean, there was a car that just kind of caught on fire in Cromarty. Now, 2 points. This is from the community council, so it's for community, it's not. This is their words, that the staff at Cromarty aren't respiratory trained, but they're pretty sure that they perhaps would like to be. I'm not speaking for them. I'm just the messenger here. And then, that fire, they had to wait for a Dingwall fire to come from Dingwall to attend to that fire, not Foot Road. So was that because of recruitment issues? And it is quite, the 50% is quite concerning, although the efforts being made to recruit are phenomenal. I mean, good on you all, but it's still quite worrying that, I think across the Highlands that the availability, on any given day might be quite low. And is this the thing that you have to keep so many people at base? That means that the service, people can't go out. I think, is it 4? You have to have 4 people at the centre. So if there's something really, so say if I had if there was a serious traffic accident in Fortrose, the Fortrose crew couldn't be able to go and attend to it because they would have to have 4 of them still there. I mean, the public would find that quite hard to comprehend. So that's my third point, really. Is there any movement on that? I mean, this is a big, wide issue strategically, isn't it? And it's not just Black Isle, it's Highlands, Scotland.
Yeah.
Operational stuff, basically.
Yeah, no problem. So the RTCs, the first point. So it wasn't in one particular area, because I've had a look and sort of I wasn't involved in them. Any of them in any way, but I've had a look and it's different areas. So there was one at the Munlochy junction on the A9, and the other ones were on more smaller rural roads, but again different areas. There was nothing that was deemed as there was one that was involved with the extrication, but the other ones were sort of smaller incidents. So in terms of speed and worries and things, it was some of them, although it's classed as RTCs, might have been involved in it ended up being more services. So we'll go and just make the vehicle safe to make sure that's not going to have any further repercussions. So in terms of the people may have been taken out of the vehicle prior to us getting there, so maybe things putting off the road or whatever. But they were in different areas from Conan to Ferntosh to Cullen, sort of Fortrose area, so the sort of smaller roads. So it was quite a widespread area. It wasn't one in particular. So basically covering all areas of the Black Isle.
Right.
But yeah, so frustrating, I know, but it's that it seemed to be, looking at it from me, sort of lower speed things, maybe with the exception of the one in the one at Ferntosh was a little bit more. The second point, so the Cromarty, I'm not. I do know there was one particular incident, and I had spoken to the crew about it. I'm not sure if I would like to think we're talking about the same incident. It was a vehicle fire in Cromarty. So the Fortrose crew they were definitely at that incident, 100%.
Oh, were they?
Yes.
Apologies.
Yep,
okay.
yep. So Fortrose were definitely there, and I think it was Inverness, but the way the system works as the same as probably a lot of emergency services is, if there is availability, and that could be that there's persons available in that area, or it could also be that they're maybe dealing with another incident. So if that nearest pump is dealing with another incident or not available, so if there is availability, it will always be the nearest appliance or appliances, depending on what's required, that will be sent to the incident, and that's as and when sort of required. So sometimes in more remote areas it may take a little bit longer, and I appreciate the frustrations, and I'd spoken to the local crew in Cromarty about it, and yes, they are not respiratory trained. They do not have breathing apparatus within their set of skills. They're not trained to do that, so they're not trained to deal with certain types of fire, that being one of them that was happened on that occasion. So the nearest appropriate appliance will be sent, which was Fortrose, and I think it was Inverness from memory.
Oh, was it from Inverness? Because I was going to ask, if Inverness is nearer and available, then it wouldn't make any sense just to wait for Dingwall, would it? It's got that flexibility.
Yeah, it's got that flexibility, and as I say, it depends on who's available at the time, and if they're dealing with something else. So there's timing. So it is worked out that the nearest one attends, or two in that occasion, because it needed slightly more. So they were there. I appreciate the frustrations, but I mean, ultimately, if the Cromarty appliance deal with road traffic collisions and wildfires, so they were a great asset in the incidents that we had at Carnoch and Daviot. So there was the two sort of big ones in that we've talked about already. So they spent a lot of time there, and they were a great asset. But because of training and the equipment, they don't attend things like that. So that's the way it is. And the availability for, you're right. So the minimum availability crewing for an appliance is 4 people. So 4 suitably trained people. So again, with the ongoing recruitment, you can imagine it takes a bit of time to get people suitably qualified. So again, to be allowed as a suitably trained person, you have to have a minimum be competent as a respiratory wearer, so a breathing apparatus wearer, to count against that numbers. But that's 4 people per appliance, and that's a safe crewing model. So to go with any less than that it wouldn't be viable, because of, I mean, ultimately health and safety is the main thing. So to run with less than that is not an option. That's what's been put in place. But in terms of certainly local availability, we touched on it, and it is going in the right direction for Fortrose. And elsewhere, yes, it is a struggle, and it's a continuing struggle. But it is being constantly worked on. There are other options that are available to the service which we use. So just in case you weren't aware of that, so each station will have a full-time support operative, basically, that's trained and qualified. And if they see, so it actually worked quite well only last week in Fortrose. So if they see that, for an example, that Fortrose only has 3 people available on a particular day, then they'll put themselves to that station as part of their day, and they'll carry out their normal daily duties of other tasks that they have from that station, which means that they can keep that station on the run. So that actually happened in Fortrose last week, and they were able to deal with an incident because they were kept on the run by this person. So there is other options, and there is options about not necessarily in the Black Isle area, but about appliances merging and joint mobilising. But that's not an option in the Black Isle at this moment. It's but it does happen elsewhere throughout the north.
Oh, Chair, that was exactly what I was just going to ask next. The joint joint mobilising sounds just like such a good idea. Is that because we're kind of betwixt, you know, thing? Well, we're kind of, we don't really naturally fit into an area that would work, joint mobilising, or is it just because that suits better really remote areas?
Yeah, so generally these things are done in more remote areas, but I do have to say this, that it's just a pilot right now, so it's under constant review, so it may change, but the pilot areas are in more remote areas that these things take place. So you may have 2 available on one station and 2 available on another, and they can come together and meet and create that safe working model. So yes, as I say, it's not currently available, but it's still early doors. It's a pilot, and it's constantly being reviewed to see how successful it is, and it's something that could be changed going forward.
Thank you. Thanks. I mean, that sounds great. That innovation, you know, and let's hope it works.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
That's it.
Thank
I
you
haven't got
very
any more.
much, Paul. Really appreciate your time coming along today and sharing that with us. And it's essentially a lot of good news and reassurance for the community. And thank you once again for all your efforts locally. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you for your help as well with all the recruitment stuff. It was much appreciated.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. Cheers, guys.
So the next one we're moving on to is for noting, and it's the various applications that have been made since May 23 to the board discretionary budget. So I was going to say, does anybody want to have any comments, or are we all quite happy with the list? Obviously, there's some really quite exciting projects in amongst that. I was wondering, Marvin, especially I was going to say I think the impact of the work on the artwork on the underpass was fantastic by the community.
Yeah, it was really brilliant, and I think it's completely transformed an area that was very dull. It's quite menacing in some ways, and it's just completely transformed it. And to have the kids involved, getting them invested in it, and the artist was just absolutely fantastic. They've done a huge job, and it's really incredible what they've done. It's really transformed the area.
I was going to say, I think it's important to note that since some of these applications were made, we did lower the limit of applications, didn't we, down to a maximum of £1,000 for an application that we would look at within the ward, just to ensure that the money went as far as possible. But I was going to say, Sarah, I think the other one that was really important to note in the list was the toilets in Och.
Yes, that was, and also I have to flag up the immense effort and work the parents at the Fortrose Academy parents in getting Duke of Edinburgh back in the school, and the participation. Well, I mean, I think actually from their efforts did exceed previous, when it was. I mean, it's now not as available, obviously, but parents are really behind it. School supporting it, and long may it continue. And I do think that little bit of extra money, as we were saying earlier, actually, we always say these small amounts at community level go in. I mean, you get way more bang for your buck. They really do make a huge difference. And I think it's going to be great moving forward if we can help support more community, like resilience, community action, community effort, in any way possible. So yeah, there's some really good ones here, and there's some good ones coming in, probably as we speak as well. So yeah, great.
Absolutely fantastic.
It's nice to give money away.
And so we're all quite happy and have noted that. So let's move on to item number 5 then. So we are common goods funds. So starting off with Cromarty. Helen, was there anything particular that you wanted to point out in the?
Really just the suggestions about budget changes, because by and large it's a kind of standard it is a monitoring report. It's business as usual very much, but our members are of course aware that the income has reduced because of the Victoria Hall not being common good, and so the report asks members to consider reducing the income shown, because obviously that's basically a matter of fact, and I've done that on the monitoring statement, but also to consider removing the small grant stream, or at least reducing it, halving it, so that you don't get a deficit budget. So I think the officer recommendation is always on the cautious side, and we would suggest removal of it. But if members wish, then obviously a part could be maintained, and at least avoid a deficit budget on the funds.
I would be happy to see it removed in the short term, on the basis that it could be reinstated if the position of the fund was to change, and perhaps even leaving it open if there was something that had significant community impact, that it could maybe be looked at on an ad hoc basis if possible.
Yeah, I mean, certainly we could bring, if there was something that you felt deserved support, was exceptional, we could obviously bring a report to reinstate. So there would be that little bit of time element, I think. But if you knew something was coming up, most projects have a bit of development time, so that probably wouldn't be too much of an issue. And if it's urgent, then it would probably have to be something you considered from your wood budget, but something else could perhaps be considered then under this budget. But it would obviously require to be relatively low level.
And I think the other impact for Cromarty is obviously the East Church Hall, isn't it? And the fact that it's still sort of empty, isn't it? And the impact that could have for the building and its fabric, really, in the long term, is something else we need to consider, isn't it?
If
Okay.
empty buildings tend to cost money in the longer term, don't they, unfortunately?
Absolutely. Sarah or Mortimer, were you wanting to come in on Cromarty at all?
I was actually going to, Chair, I was going to raise the East Church Hall, because I mean it's it's a beautiful building, and it's a very, got quite a place in the hearts of people in Cromarty because of what it became 20 odd years ago. I mean, I used to use it. My daughter used to, used to drop her off there, and it can and should, if something needs to be done and supported, so it can generate income for the common good and also serve the community. I know the Cromarty Community Trust were interested, but they've got so many projects that they're trying to get going themselves. It's kind of slightly fallen off the radar. The community council, I know, were able to go and have a look round. Nothing's come back yet, but I just feel there needs to be a little bit of sense of urgency and impetus, because as you say, Highland have just kind of been left. It's like being left with the keys, really, isn't it? And it's not really a solution. Something needs to be done one way or the other, I think, with it, to bring it back to life in some way of shape or form, or not waste money. That's just an opinion. Obviously, Helen, I know that's not anything you can comment or say today, but it's just worth getting out there, I think.
I mean, it is, if I could come back there, it certainly is something I've just taken a note of. And I mean, you'll obviously be very aware that we're being restructured. I'm obviously sort of covering until some of that is in place. But obviously, that's something, once we settle into the structure, we could maybe pick up, because whoever is in post supporting the Black Isle will be wanting to build relationships with the community groups. And either they'll already know or they'll be getting to know some of those areas. And that's something, if we have a note, that's probably the best time to pick that up, so that somebody who's making contact with the groups is somebody who's going to stay as a link. And obviously, the ward manager can't sort of work as a development officer because we don't have the capacity. But if you've got a ward manager who's permanently in post and supporting that, they will be building the links And that's often where you can help to pull people together for something that, when you take it on, you need something that's stable, and it needs to be a group who have got some vision,
Yeah.
and time to think that through. So I think that would be a really interesting thing for someone in post, to get to grips with. But it's probably more effective and more practical to say, well, actually, that's our opportunity to try and pick that up, with whoever it is supporting and linking. Because we obviously have quite a lot of funding information to send out. There will be other groups to link with, and I know sometimes groups are so busy they rightly say, "Oh, I'm not taking on another one," because you can't do everything. But that
No.
could be bottomed out a little bit more.
Well, and also we do, let's face it, committees are resourceful and creative. I mean, you can rely on comedy to come up with something imaginative and wonderful. So as the other communities, once you kind of allow this creativity, it's amazing what can be done. So that would be fantastic. Once the new structure's in place for 2024, we just get to the bottom of it and just get some impetus, and then I think it will become a bit infectious in the village. So that would be great. Thanks.
So thank you both for that. And so moving on to part B, which obviously Fartrose and Rosemarkey's Common Good Fund. So obviously whole different issues, isn't it?
Sorry, Chair. Can I just confirm that we're agreeing the recommendations that are on the agenda in respect of item 5A?
Yes.
With Lindsay's caveat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there was something
On the
exceptional,
basis that it could be reinstated in the future. Thank you. Just want to have that confirmed for the record.
Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, so obviously Fartrose and Rosemarkey Common Good Fund has quite a different set of issues at the moment in terms of the coastal erosion, really, and what's been happening with the gabions there. Sarah, you were, I think Marvin May and Sarah, you've both seen it in person, haven't you?
It's really devastating what's happened. It's quite heartbreaking. I was speaking to quite a few different people who were just staring at it in shock. It really is quite devastating. There's no other word for it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so obviously the accounts are showing the basically the cost, isn't it, of the collapse in gabions, and I think it's I don't think we can underplay or underestimate how important and urgent the situation has now become, and how serious I think everybody is all taking it now. I think it's absolutely, we can't understate, the impact of the coastal erosion that's happening in the whole area, really, is it? And the risk it poses to, I suppose, to everything surrounding that area. Sarah, did you have any comments that you were wanting to make on this one?
And the only comment is obviously, Helen, these papers, what's in the papers is an issue that we are already trying to address. That what's happened subsequently puts this into an entirely different orbit, doesn't it? But if we just take what's in the paper, which is the common good bit, which is the campsite bit, obviously the other two huge areas are possibly out with this meeting. Well, definitely out with this meeting, which is the Scottish Water Golf Club path, which has literally disappeared, and the other issues beyond, and the issue with the road, which is very serious, which I know, for anyone watching is being, the officials have been out there looking at it. So I suppose just for today, as Tashia says, we know that obviously we're well aware and just devastated what's happened, but for the bit that we're talking about, maybe we just have to focus on that for this meeting and this paper. because a lot's happened since the paper came out, obviously. Does that sound reasonable, Helen? Obviously, you can't speak for Scottish Water, you can't speak for roads, you can't speak for the other bits.
No, and indeed, and I think, yes, I think today that the key element is the bit about the Gabions, and I know I apologise at the business meeting yesterday, but I probably need to record it at this meeting that the information in the report is wrong. There was basically a mix-up between myself and in Moncrieff, so the cost indicated is correct, but actually the contract isn't yet let. So basically, what I'm actually asking today, therefore, is for members to approve that spend, and it basically is essential spend, really. So my apologies for that. But I have actually this morning, I have to say, I've been reading. There's a document. It's clearly been around for a while, 2014 document, but it is the policy on coastal defences and coastal erosion. So I've been giving that a good read this morning, and I think, yeah, that's one where going forward there's going to have to be some dialogue. But obviously cash is limited, and actually council responsibility is quite limited on some of these. So I think there probably needs to be some engagement with members, and then also with the community. So I was going to pick that up with, for a lot of it would be in Moncrieff. Obviously I know about the Scottish Water involvement, but we need to have what is going to be, I think, quite a difficult conversation, because people will be looking for us to do things that are not something we're bound to do or have a responsibility for, and for which, they're going to be expensive, and money is not a lot of it about. So I think
No, and I think
that's a difficult discussion to come up
I do
shortly.
think, it is in terms of the size of this common good fund, is a huge spend. I mean, I don't think there's any getting away from that. But I also think that when it comes to the rules about the first duty is to protect the common good, essentially, if we lose that campsite to coastal erosion, there is no common good fund, really, is there? And so in many ways, that spend is to protect what is the asset, really, isn't it? And that's why it's such an important thing for the common good to spend the money on in this instance.
And yeah, there is the safety risk, which obviously we have to have in mind.
Yes.
But I think the wider discussion is needed, and also just to ensure that we share an understanding of what is possible, what's aspirational, speak to the community. There may be other sources of funding for other areas of erosion, but it will be quite a difficult conversation.
Absolutely. So are we happy to agree that, Sarah and Marv and me?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm kind of, because it feels quite weird. So what we're agreeing is to award a contract to get,
yeah, to carry out that essential work to the Gabions, and that is the estimated cost. As I say, that was a mix up between Ian and myself. There was another contract, and it was the company, and it was the same amount of money. So my apologies for that. But that nevertheless is what we're asking members to.
I know that the only thing that really works is rock armour, isn't it? I mean, Gabions don't really do.
I think
cut the mustard.
It's probably important to remember that the Gabion repair is about safety. It's about something that was put in that has become unsafe, and the urgency is not about making it more effective. Actually, it's about making it safe, and therefore that's why that work is essential. I don't know enough about Gabions to speculate on how much the level of protection they give. That's definitely not my area of expertise, but I am clear that the reason we're regarding currently as urgent is about the safety issue
along that stretch along the campsite. I was there when the Gabions were put in as I was a community councillor at that time. Seems to me that in terms of the way that the tides are, something's changed dramatically. It's just like a bit of fishing net, frankly. That's what it felt like. That's what it looks like now. It's just like, oh my God, it's so frightening, the power of the sea. But okay, yeah, I get it. It basically they have to be made safe. They have to be made. It's urgent, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's our advice, and it's not lightly given.
So when will we be able to have this kind of honest kind of meeting conversations? Will that has to be fairly soon, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was thinking maybe of either getting a slot at your next business meeting and getting appropriate colleagues, or if you, I don't know how busy your agendas always are, it might need to be a separate meeting. But I was thinking of that kind of timescale and not waiting till the structure's in place. Whoever ends up in the structure will need to catch up and understand it. But also this kind of work, obviously, it's not actually led by a ward manager. It's we obviously have support from other colleagues in the council who are experts on it, so we can start the conversation. As I say, I would suggest the next business meeting would be, if I can get, and if we can't get the appropriate people, we could make another date, but that sort of timescale, as soon as we can.
Yeah, even sooner maybe. I don't know what the others think. So it's next business meeting's in a month, and that feels quite a long way away, considering, even from when I first saw it to 3 days later, it was worse.
I'm very
visibly.
happy to look for a date as soon as I'll need to check which officers are essential to that, and then obviously work with yourselves, and you know what diaries are like, but I'm sure we'll make something work.
Super.
Thanks, Helen.
But Helen, thank you so much for all your work that's gone into both the Common Good reports. Really appreciate all your efforts there for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Apologies, Chair, for interrupting again. Can I just clarify, just so I'm absolutely clear what's going in the minutes for this item? So the recommendation on the agenda was to note and homologate the additional essential expenditure. You're saying, Helen, that should be approve. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was an error in the report. So if you could amend it to approve expenditure estimated at 90,000 to support the safety works required on the gabions.
Super. Thank you.
Okay, and then the last thing was to note the minutes of our previous meeting. So are we quite happy to have them noted?
Yes.
Okay, well, I think that is just about us in record time for such a short and sweet agenda. So thank you all very much for your time today. Really appreciate it.